How's it going, everyone? I'm KingBlackToof and this is my first video in a year. It's a Path of Exile video. I've never done one before. I'm pretty excited to just give it a shot, so hopefully it goes well. Today's video we're going to be doing a crafting guide for a +2 level of skill gems Righteous Fire Amulet. This is the final product. It's going to cost about 10 to 12 divines to craft. And what's really nice is the workflow is very front loaded with the RNG and backloaded with the expense. So at the beginning it's got a lot of low risk RNG with alteration orbs spamming, and that's relatively cheap. Once you get over the RNG hurdle, that's when you have to start spending your divines, and from then on it's all deterministic and flows like butter. Or a river, I suppose. So before I get started, I want to go over some of the terminology that's going to pop up in this video for beginners. Now, advanced level crafting in Path of Exile uses a lot of prefix knowledge and suffix knowledge. So these are the modifiers that an item can have. So this rare item can have a maximum of 6 modifiers, and that's split into 3 prefixes and 3 suffixes. If you hold Alt when you hover over an item, it will give you more details, including whether it's a prefix modifier, a suffix modifier, what tier that roll is, whether it's a good roll or a bad roll, as well as the tags associated with that particular modifier. To carry on from that, white items can have 0 prefixes and suffixes. Magic items can have 1 prefix slot and 1 suffix slot. And a rare item has a maximum of 3 prefix slots and 3 suffix slots. It is also worth noting that prefixes and suffixes have different possible rolls. So for example, if you want cold resistance, that is a suffix mod. It can't be rolled in a prefix slot. Now, there's a lot of edge cases in Path of Exile, but this is a really good base of understanding. There's also a really good website, poedb.tw. It's a great tool to see what all the possible rolls are on all the possible items. It's outside the scope of this video. I will be using it towards the end of the video, but I'll be limiting it to the specific stuff that's relevant to us. So before we get started, we get to choose what kind of amulet we want. Now, the modifier at the top of the amulet, at the very top, is called the implicit modifier. And this is inherent on the type of item it is. So an amber amulet will always have strength. A jade amulet will always have dexterity. A lapis amulet will always have intelligence. And you can choose which one that you want to start with. I chose a marble amulet because regenerate percentage of life per second is pretty good for a Righteous Fire build. So we're not going to be changing this during the craft, and it needs to be item level 75 minimum. So you can check this by holding Alt over an item and it'll tell you the item level. 82 is recommended, but 75 is minimum. So to start with, we're going to have to go onto the trade website and buy an amulet that we like the look of with a fractured modifier. So a fractured modifier is a prefix or a suffix that is permanently etched onto that item. And it has this particular color, so you can tell. And it's a really nice way of getting a head start on good rolls because these ones can't be removed via crafting. So here are 2 fractured modifiers that I recommend for Righteous Fire builds. Regenerate life per second, or percentage to damage over time multiplier. Now the regenerate life per second is a lot more common and therefore a lot cheaper. And the damage over time multiplier is a lot more sought after and therefore more expensive. So depending on your budget, find an amulet on the trade website that you like the look of with one of these fractured mods, and then we shall begin the craft. So to start the craft with the most annoying section, we need to get +1 level of all skill gems onto the amulet. And to do this, we're going to be using alteration orbs. We're going to keep on clicking until we hit it. It's going to take about 1,500 on average, although you could get unlucky or you could get lucky, okay? Sometimes when you click it, it looks like no modifier is added. That is because due to the fractured mod, the alteration orb is hitting the suffix slot, which is already taken by the fractured mod. If you want to, you can use an augmentation orb to guarantee the prefix to roll. It is quite annoying to switch between those 2 currencies, however. Make sure you're holding down shift to continue using the orbs, and just be careful not to roll over +1 skill gems. If you want, you can type into the crafting search bar, in quotations, level of all, and that will help highlight it when it appears. When you manage to hit it, we're moving on to the next section. So congratulations, you got the +1 level of all skill gems onto your fractured item. Now we need to turn it into a rare with a Regal Orb. This will open up its extra 2 prefix slots and its extra 2 suffix slots. When you use a Regal Orb, it turns it to rare and will give it 1 affix. This could be prefix or it could be suffix. If it hits a prefix, you unfortunately have to do a 50-50 Orb of Annulment to get that prefix off. If it hits the prefix you just put on, great. If it hits the +1 level of all skill gems, you are back to step 1, my friend. Do not collect $200. You've got to roll that +1 level of all skill gems, and I pray for your mental health. If it hits a suffix, then the RNG is over, but it's going to cost you 2 divines here. You have to craft prefixes can't be changed on the item and then use a Scouring Orb. So if you made it to this section, then congratulations, the RNG is over. You should have a +1 level of all skill gems on a fractured item that is rare. Now we did this so that we've got 2 open prefix slots and we've got 2 open suffix slots ready to craft upon. And what we're going to do is we're going to fill up all the suffix slots and we're going to block a particular attack that we don't want in the prefix slot. So in order, we're going to craft, can have up to 3 crafted modifiers. This is the suffix and will cost you 2 divines. Then we're going to craft prefixes cannot be changed, which is a suffix, and it's going to cost you 2 divines. So the final step to getting our +2 can roll 2 particular things at the minute. It can roll +1 level of all fire skill gems, and it can roll adds X fire damage to attacks. So we're going to craft our third and final thing, which is adds X fire damage to attacks. This is a prefix, and you can craft the weakest tier for this because we're going to get rid of it. But this blocks that, so the only thing the next step can craft is the +1 level of all fire skill gems. Okay, so your item should look something like this with 3 crafted modifiers, prefixes cannot be changed, and adds X fire damage to attacks. We are then going to take it to the Haughty crafting station and we're going to craft add a new fire modifier and remove another modifier from a non-influenced item. This is going to cost you 15,000 wild crystallized life force and 1 sacred crystallized life force. The result being that we get +1 level to all fire skill gems. Now the craft did say that it was going to remove a modifier, and there's only 2 modifiers it can remove. We don't necessarily mind which one it hits, but there are different opportunities for us depending on which one it hits. So either it'll hit prefixes cannot be changed and overwrite that, or it'll hit can have up to 3 crafted modifiers and overwrite that. If it hits prefixes cannot be changed, we carry on with our normal method. Here we craft remove crafted mods, suffix from the crafting bench, then craft can have up to 3 crafted modifiers suffix from the crafting bench, and then we're ready in the next step to craft a suffix and a prefix that we'd like to craft. If it hits can have up to 3 crafted modifiers, then we have another option. We have the standard route, which we did just a second ago, but there is the option to do an Aisling Veil craft. This is not something that I wasn't really going to talk about in this video, but I decided to do so and I will put it at the end of the video. So remember this step if you manage to hit 3 crafted modifiers. If you want to look into what Aisling Veil crafts are, it will be at the end of the video, okay? Otherwise, we are going to again do the same as we did if it hit the other one, which is we craft remove crafted mods suffix on the crafting bench, then we craft can have up to 3 crafted modifiers suffix, and then we're ready to craft a suffix and a prefix of our desire. So at this point, you've got 1 prefix and 1 suffix open and we can choose what we want. I highly recommend doing percentage increased fire damage for our suffix and for our prefix plus to maximum life. They're the best 2 ones that I think we can do. There are other options, +1 minimum endurance charges for suffix. You only want to take this as a free endurance charge if you don't earn them in some other way, because it raises the floor, it doesn't raise the ceiling. So if you get endurance charges some other way, this is not very good. And for prefixes, you could go for non-channeling skills have a minus number to total mana cost. So if your reserving all your mana with auras, and you're not life tapping your fire trap or whatever secondary skill you're using, then you might want to make it free. I don't think this is something that most Righteous Fires do. It's just an option that you can take this if you want. Again, I recommend increased fire damage and maximum life as your final 2 crafts. So there's our final product. Hopefully it looks reasonably good for you, but don't forget to add all the bells and whistles. You've got to use your Blessed Orbs to get a high roll on your implicit modifier at the top, Regenerate. You can also use Fertile Catalysts, which are from the Metamorph mechanic, to add 20 quality to your ring. I chose the Fertile Catalyst because it affects life and mana, and that would improve the Regeneration implicit modifier as well as the life suffix that I crafted. And also don't forget to anoint it. Use your oils to get a notable passive point for free. So that's the end of the video. We've got the Aisling craft coming up, but I want to say thank you for watching right now in case you're not going to stick around. This was my first Path of Exile video. I decided to do the +2 Righteous Fire Amulet because it's a safe and reliable. I knew what I was doing. I've played the build before, and so I wanted something nice and easy to do a video on. Maybe I'll do like build guides in the future if this is received well, but again, just thank you for watching. And up next, Aisling craft. So welcome to the Aisling crafting section. So I put this at the end because it gets a bit more complicated for beginners, and I wanted to keep the general main workflow simple. So if you remember, we just got our +1 level of all fire skill gems, and it removed can have up to 3 crafted modifiers. So we've still got prefixes cannot be changed on the item. So an Aisling craft, this can be earned in different ways. So it's based on the Syndicate mechanic. You need to have Aisling as the leader in the research tag. She needs to be 3 stars, and then you need to fight the final boss at the top, the big one, not the safe house that she's in. You need to fight the big one, and that will get you a tier 4 Aisling craft. And what that does is it removes a modifier and adds the veiled modifier. Okay, so the only modifier that can actually be removed on the current item is prefixes cannot be changed. All the others are either prefixes or fractured, so they can't be changed. So this guarantees us a veiled suffix. Okay, now veiled modifiers, they're slightly better than our craftable options, but you get an option of 3 from a small pool, so we don't necessarily get always what we want. There are ways to improve it, but it's not always perfect. This can be purchased from other players if you don't actually want to do the mechanic yourself, and it costs about 2 divines to do this. Now, if you're choosing to do this, then you save 2 divines from the standard method. So this is the same price as doing it the standard way we did it. So if you decide to do the Aisling craft, then you can just do that straight away. It will remove prefixes can't be changed and give us a veiled suffix, and it'll have a squiggly line because it's veiled. We do not want to unveil that yet. We want to look at all the items on the right here, and these are the things that you could possibly get. So there's some things in here we don't want, like you have Val Pact while focused, 15% of damage leeches life while focused. So what we're going to do is we're going to craft that onto our item so that it can't appear when we unveil it. Okay, and that gives us the better odds to get something that we actually want. So let's go ahead and craft. You have Val Pact while focused from the crafting bench, and then unveil. Now on the right here are some examples of what it could look like. So you could get Cold and Chaos, Strength and Intelligence, and minimum power charges. Or you could get increased trap throwing speed, attack and cast speed, minimum power charges. Or you could get mine throwing speed, trap throwing speed, brand attachment range. So you don't always get what you want. You got to pick the best option. Hopefully it goes well for you. So hopefully you've unveiled and got something good. The benefit of doing this particular route is that we've got a spare prefix slot and we've got a spare suffix slot. We can't craft can have up to 3 crafted modifiers because that takes the slot, and then we're just crafting 1 like normal. So even if we craft something onto an item, we've still got a spare slot. So there's not really much can be done about that apart from slamming, which is like where you use an Exalt orb, it adds a new modifier, and it's totally random from the entire pool that can go from there. So it's very random. We could get a really good modifier but a really low roll. We could get a really high roll but a terrible modifier. So it's very random. So there is something, again, we can do to sort of influence this just a little bit. So we can use a craft to block a prefix or a suffix, and that'll force the modifier onto the other remaining open one. So let's have a quick look at what we could do here. So I'm a big fat nerd, and here's a bunch of numbers. So we're going to exalt a new modifier, and we've got an open prefix and an open suffix, and we can craft one thing to block it. Okay, if we craft on the suffix, the exalt orb will have to go onto a prefix. If we craft on the prefix, the exalt orb will have to go on the suffix. So here's the list of all the prefixes you can get on an amulet and all the suffixes you can get on an amulet. Okay, some of them you can't get because you've already got them, like +1 level to all skill gems, +1 level to all fire skill gems. As you can see, I kind of recommend that we craft for the prefix and then we slam for the suffix, because there's a lot more beneficial suffixes than there are beneficial prefixes for us. I recommend that we craft plus to maximum life on a prefix, and then we slam on the suffix, and we hope we get any sort of resistances, damage over time multiplier if we don't already have it, regenerate life per second if we didn't already take it on the fractured mod, increase fire damage. Now the only downside to that is that you might not get increased fire damage and you lose out on it. Alternatively, you could craft on the prefix increased fire damage and then exalt for the prefixes. There's some nice things: spell damage, maximum life, maybe maximum energy shield, armor. You know, there's a lot more dangerous ones that are not very good for righteous fire. Cold damage to attacks, fire damage to attacks, lightning damage to attacks, physical damage to attacks. Righteous fire doesn't do attacks, so there's a lot of dangerous ones. So choose whichever way you want. I recommend craft life and then exalt. Try and hit some attributes, try and hit some resistances, try and hit, you know, fire damage increase. And good luck. Again, a second thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you again another day.